Alrighty. Hello, everyone, and welcome to our fourth and final session for today. Molly Colwell is going to be doing useful things about ParkView, i.e. our tips and tricks section. This is usually a crowd favorite. It's definitely one of my favorites. So she's going to be bouncing around between a lot of things. I don't want to spoil anything, but this should be a good one. So let's go ahead and see what Molly has to tell us about ParkView.
Hi, my name is Molly Colwell. I've been an implementation engineer for Capstone for about 2 years. Today we're going to go over some useful things you might not have known about ParkView. We'll cover new features and some things that have been around for quite a while. If you're following along in the handout, it has the version number that it was introduced in. So yeah, let's go ahead and get started. We're going to start with 7.0 Tag Browser. During the presentation, I'm going to be demonstrating everything in 7.0. Okay, so a couple things have changed with Tag Browser. This is the source tab. We have a lot fewer options for checking off up here. We used to have the script editor and tag info, and that would open those items for whatever tag you had highlighted. But we've moved those into the right-click menu. So if you select a tag and right-click, you have your tag info option and your script editor option. So we've removed those from this upper section. The refresh button, which used to be up here, is now at the bottom, right next to the total tag count. So if we search for a tag, we can see that there are 8 tags out of 149 that start with, or that have 3, 1, 2 in it. These checkboxes here, filter by column, just allows you to filter for the columns. And then this one requires you to press enter after you, you type in your filter. So if you just want the tag browser to hold on a second and wait until you finish typing, that's that option. So reg exchange filtering. We've also moved some of the items down into the header right-click menu. So we have the option to show the current values, the most recent timestamp, and the quality. So when you click those, a new column will appear, and it will show you the current values for those tags, the most recent value. And then we have the alarm option. So if we enable that, we have this new column, alarm, and we can now use this to search for alarms within this source. You can sort by each of these columns just by clicking on it, and then if you click again, it will sort the other way. So now we can see all of the alarms within that sort, and then we can filter by them. So we can just uncheck that. These columns are also movable. We can move the process area over here. And once you have something set up that you like, you can save it as the default, and that's what it will appear next time that you open Tag Browser. Last thing in here I wanted to show is the process dropdown. Before, we were only able to choose one process area, but now we have this checkbox tree system, so you can actually choose multiple at once. So first, you can choose all your drop-down options just by clicking them or unselecting them. When you have this tree option with items underneath it, when you click it once, it's going to fill in everything underneath the tree. When we click it again, it will remove all of those and just do the single one. And if we click it again, it will clear the option. If we have a bunch of items clicked, we can use this X to clear everything. So that's not going to take you out of this little window. It's just going to remove any clicks that you've already done. So once you have what you want, you can just click out of the window, and then all your processes will be selected there. Great, so I think that's it for 7.0 Tag Browser. The next item I want to show is a source in Tag Browser. So this is an Excel source, and it has been around for a while. So This can be used to trend Excel data in ParkView. So if you have a short amount of data that is in Excel, maybe averages or a summary from a supplier or something, and you want to trend that against your process data, you can use this source, this Excel source, to do that. So first, we need to get the file, and it doesn't have to be saved in ParkView. It just needs to be saved where you can access it. So first, we're going to select a file. Mine is saved in ParkView, so it's in my folder, and we open it. And then we select the sheet we want to load. So we load selected sheet. And then, oops, down here at the bottom, got to make this a little larger. We made the screen really big so we can see it in, shoot, resolution is just a little too big for this. Sorry about that. All right. So we have this grid underneath, and we can see that it loaded in my data. So I have timestamp data here. I can make this big. My timestamp data, and then my tag 1, 2, and 3. So then we just fill out the tag section here to make tags. So our name row is column 5. Our description row is also going to be column 5. Units, we don't have any, we can just leave that blank. The min row is column 3. So that's like your plot min, and our plot max is 4. And you can just type that in too, you don't have to click on it. The first column of data is column B, and the last column of data is column D. Our time column is A. Our first row is 6, and in this one, our last row is 340. Excel is, this summary is only going to show about 100 rows. So if you're not sure how much data you have, go ahead and open up the Excel sheet and see how many rows it is. So that's your last row. Then we can load the tags to the tags tab, which will pop you over here. And then we can use these tags just like we would any other tag in Tag Browser. So I can select them all, right click and trend. And now I get this trend of all my data. So this was just, I did a random number generator for these, and I can zoom in, and I can go to the source tab, or I can go to Tag Browser and pull in some other data into here and compare it with my Excel data. You could right click and create a XY plot on it, do a histogram chart. So this really gives you the ability to look at Excel data in ParkView. So these tags this would mostly be used for small pieces of data and items that you wouldn't be sharing. It's not like something you would use for something mill-wide. Other users can, if you save this in a trend, other users can access those tags if they have access to the Excel sheet, but the tags aren't going to show up in their Excel source. So this is kind of like a quick trend, easier sometimes trend in ParkView than in Excel. So that is a neat feature. Okay, now we're going to pop over to MDEs and look at MDE dropdowns. Okay, so we can we have a drop-down feature where we can fill in values for MDE, which then users can select and save data. And when we go into configuration, the way we used to do it is by going over here and going lookup and lookup edit. So then users would have to type in the display value as well as the value that's being saved to the database. And so they basically have to type in the value twice for each drop-down option. And say you have 10 tags that you want to say yes or no, good or bad, a scale of 1 to 10, whatever, you'd have to type those in each time for each of those tags. So we realized that was a little monotonous, so we added this new option called query template. So now we can create a query template, and all you have to do is come in here and select that, and you don't have to type it in every time. So let's go make a template real quick. Yes, I want to continue. So the query template is actually in system config. So if you are trying to do this, you're going to need admin settings, privileges, something a little higher than just basic user. So to create this template, we're going to go to system config and then the query template option, and then use the drop down for MDE lookup and create a new template. I'm going to create one that is called good bad, so we can so I can prove that there's a difference between this one and the one that's already there. So I'm going to have an option that's good and an option that's bad, and this is just a SQL query. So I'm just going to do a simple select statement. Select bad, union, select good. So this is my list. It's going to just say bad and then good. But since this is connected to SQL, you can access the database, and if you have a table in there that you want to drop down of maybe process areas or something else, you can create a much more complex list here if you want. So I'm going to go ahead and test this to make sure I got my script correct. So then from here I do test execute, which brings up a test window. I'm going to parse it, create the script, and then execute it. And below here is my result, bad and good, exactly what I want. So I'll cancel out of that and save my template, close out of system config, and reopen MDE. So now I want to change this dropdown to good and bad. So I'll go to configure, go to my dropdown option, and change from fixed list to query template. So now I have my good bad query template in there, and I can save it and close. And now when I add a new record, my drop-down options are good and bad. So that's how to use a query in order to populate your dropdown. All right. Next, we've added MDE header and grade information access into scripts. So before, if we wanted to find the grade name or the start time, say, of this header information, and we wanted to use that in our data, we had to do an advanced formula, query the SQL database, and pull back the information, and then do whatever sort of calculation on it. But now we have this call, which is called MDE record. So we'll go into config, and I have two examples already set up. I just hit the tags. So I'll go ahead and scroll over here and unhide them. And then we'll come back and look at the scripts. So I have these both as scripts, and the first one, I'm just getting the grade name. So I have MDE record.grade name, and it's just an expression. So the result is going to be the grade name that is in the header. So if we type in MDE record and dot, we can see all of the options we have. So we can grab the end time, the grade description, the grade name ID, which is the ID that's in the SQL database, the product label, the start time, any of those options. And from here, we can actually use that to make a select statement. So this is a simple formula that I created. So I have a variable, and I'm getting my grade name, and I'm saying if the grade name is 13,445, then I want the multiplier value to be 0.5. If my grade name is 0, make it 0.75, and if it's anything else, make it 1. And then my equation is 10 times my multiplier. Alternatively, I could have it be my multiplier times another MDE tag. So I had that value tag in there. I can just click from the bottom and drag it up here. So I have my multiplier times my MDE value. Go ahead and save that formula. And save this. So now we can see that the grade name is coming over to the first tag, and then my value is being multiplied in my second tag. I added all of the options for MDE.record to that handout, but again, if you just do MDE.record, IntelliSense should give you all the options that you can use there. Okay, popping back to trend. So in a trend, we we all know about Smart Mouse, where you can pull up the values and timestamps in a trend. And we can do that just by up here clicking Smart Mouse. We have the right-click menu for Smart Mouse. Or on some computer mice, you can click the center wheel and have it pop up. So the feature I'm showing is we can now pin Smart Mouse. So if you hit the Shift button and left click, you can put a pin on the trend. And you can have multiple pins on your trend of your Smart Mouse. So this is great if you need to take a screenshot and you want to show multiple pieces of information on your trend. From here, we can exit out of the pinned window just by hovering over the window itself. There's a little X option. We also have the option of switching sides. So there's a little arrow and we can flip the pin if we don't like the side it's on. We can also move it. So if we press Control, the line will get highlighted blue, and that means that we can click on it and move it. So if it wasn't quite in the right spot, we can just press Control and move. And when we have these pins, you can actually move the trend. So unlike markers, where once you have a marker on, you can't move the trend, when we have the pins, you can still move the trend. They do not save to the trend, though. And another thing in trend I want to illustrate is the navigation. I believe we showed this in all of our conferences, but it is my favorite thing we can do in ParkView, so I want to show it again. When we have a multi-trend, you can sync the times, right? If we're looking at a certain area, you can sync the times within all the other trends by right-clicking and sync. And so now all 4 of these trends match. But if you're troubleshooting and you have multiple trends up, it's kind of tedious to see what the start time is and try and type it in here. So what you can actually do is click on this time itself down here, the date, and drag it into another trend. And from there, now these two match, and I can right click and sync, and now all my other times match. So I think that's a neat feature. All right, those are those are my trend items. We're going to move along to Park graphics. Just two quick things in there. So in Park graphics, a lot of people want to change the color of the canvas itself. If we go ahead and click on the canvas and change the color, I'll save this. When we open it in Park View, we're going to see two white lines on either side, two bars on either side of your main graphic, which is not bad, but it doesn't look super great. So we can actually get rid of those bars. So I'm going to change the canvas value back to background back to white, and go to the Controls tab and go to PV Display Control. So here is where we can change the color. If we go back to Properties, and if we choose red now, then this canvas is white, so it's overwriting that. I need to say none. There we go. So PV Properties, red. Now if I save that and open my graphic, the whole thing is red. So it's just a little more uniform, looks a little better. And then the other item in here is the Controls Toolbox. There's lots of different ways to use this. We have a lot of different great things in here. I'm not going to go over all of them. Just wanted to review ways to get things out of here quickly. So we have things like the gear or the gauge, and we can click and drag directly into the canvas, and that will create a uniform size of the gear. So if we just click and drag of the gauge, or we can just simply click on a gauge and then size it to be whatever size we want. Then there's this lock option. So if we choose lock and choose, say, a button, we will see these crosshairs that we get. And as we click and drag and uncheck, the crosshairs are going to stay there. So you can actually add as many buttons as you want quickly without having to go back and forth. And then once you're done, you just click on the mouse, and we can select them all and make them the same size, space them evenly, things like that. Okay, those were the two quick things I wanted to show in Graphics Designer. And now we'll move to alarm configuration. So alarms are great. A lot of the times you have an alarm, you set it up beautifully, and you want your other alarms to match that. Or you have a new alarm and you're like, well, it's 90% of the way there with this alarm that I have. I want to create an alarm just like this. So we now have this copy alarm button. So if I find an alarm that I want to copy, I can click on that, and it will add an alarm at the bottom. And then from here, I can add a tag, get my square. So this is a sine wave alarm. I can get my square wave in there. And so I just replaced the tag that this alarm is based off of. Now you need to do this before you save the alarm, because otherwise you can't edit this. And then I don't want this to say copy anymore because it's not I don't have two square alarms. So I'm just going to remove that copy and just have it say min max. Then I can come down here and adjust any items as needed. But I can see that my deadband copied over, my event modification values copied over, even if I had any alarms, and if those alarms were being assigned to anyone, will copy over. So copy alarm is a great tool. So we have that plus, and then we can save the alarm, and now it's been saved. Another feature in alarm configuration is you can actually edit multiple alarms at once. So if you want to add a deadband setting to 10 alarms, you don't have to click on the alarm, come to deadband, type it in, and change it. You can just do it all at once. So if I press Shift and select, I'll get multiple. You can also hit Control and get those individual tags that you want if there are just some individual ones. So now I have multiple alarms selected. And if I scroll up, we'll see that some things are grayed out. Now these are items I cannot change. So I can't edit the name or the type, but I can make the alarm inactive or activate an alarm. I can edit notes. I come down to the formula section and I can't edit any of those things. But down here, I could have all of them have a 5-minute deadband on it. So now we can see that each of these have a pencil. They've been edited. I can come over to the event notification, and we can see that all of these are indicating that the alarms have different settings with these grayed out. So I'd say, okay, I want all of my alarms to be acknowledged if I have a reason or a comment or equipment entered, and so make sure there's nothing gray in the or. So I want for alarms are closed, reason assigned, a comment entered, and the event is entered. So if I save that, I can go ahead and click on one of these individual ones, and my settings that I just edited will be there. Okay, so those are the items I had in ParkView to show off. There are 2 more help files I wanted to explain and just make note of. So our help manual is pretty extensive. It has over 1,500 pages, and there's actually a button in most display types that when you click it, it brings you directly to the display you were just on. So I clicked help in alarm configuration, and it pulled it up for me in alarm configuration. So I think the help files are awesome for getting a dictionary definition of what something does. So if you're trying to configure an alarm, you don't know what formula to use, it will spell out exactly what the formula does, what the setting does. Great for a dictionary definition. And we also have tutorials. So if someone's new to ParkView or you can't quite remember how to do something, there are step-by-step, it's a step-by-step guide to show you how to navigate or change the time span in ParkView. So lots of good items in here to see. So again, that's in most of the displays have a tab called Help, and then you just go to the manual. And you can expand the trees to get more information. And there also is a search. And the last thing I wanted to point out is our community forum. So I like to point this out just as something that if you think you have a question that you would want to Google, a Googleable question, you should check out the forum if you can't find it in the user manual. We have this section called ParkView, and this is where customers can come and ask questions. And we also have Capstone employees who type in frequently asked questions and results. So if we go in on MDE, we have the discussion option, and then down here is where Capstone can, even if there's not a discussion question about it, they can come in here and show how to edit MDE dropdowns. And it just is a step-by-step guide, maybe a little more in-depth than what is in the help manual, and step-by-step guide on how to edit dropdowns. If you wanted to ask your own question, you can go into the discussion page and choose a thread, click on thread title, and then it'll open up a dialog box where you can type in your question, first a title and then your question, and then support staff or engineers will come and answer your questions. So simple question, and then here's a step-by-step guide on how to answer the questions. So if you're not already signed up with the forum, definitely get signed up. You just need to use your company email. And yeah, I think that's all I have for you today. I'll go ahead and take some questions.
All right. Well, thank you, Molly, for all those wonderful little tidbits. I saw a lot of chatter. I saw a lot of questions. So I think there's been some good engagement on this one.
Great.
All right. So we'll go ahead and we'll try to go through these questions, as many as we can. So the first, you were talking about the Excel data series, being able to create Excel tags or tags from Excel data. Somebody was sort of curious what you meant by small. They were curious about 10,000 rows of data.
Yeah, you can have a lot of data in there. I think Adam, you said we had you've done it before with 86,000 rows of data. I mostly meant information that you wouldn't want to access repeatedly and share with a lot of other people. If data is that important, we should really get it in an MDE tag or in some other kind of tag so you can access it, share it on a regular basis.
Yeah. So yeah, the one of the other things that kind of came up, and Rich kind of mentioned this in chat during your video, you mentioned that you have to put in like a last row value. You can often leave that field blank, and then the Excel data series is able to sort of smartly realize, as long as there's no breaks, it will go to the last continuous row. So that's another, I think, cool tip for people. If you don't necessarily know how deep it is, you can use that.
Great.
Okay. And there was another question around the Excel data series. Hold on. There's so many questions that keep scrolling.
No.
Once you pull the data into Parquet from Excel and add other tags to the trend, can you then export it back to Excel, and will it put all the data in the right time frame or time span?
I think that's a question for you, Adam. Can you do that?
So yes, the answer to that question is yes. Once it gets into trend, it doesn't really matter what data series it is, whether it's Excel, Historian data series, manual entry, or SQL. When you do that export, it will be able to pull out those values and be able to either normalize them or give you the raw values that you requested, depending on how you do that export. So yes, that does work. Go ahead and find a question for me.
Cool. Yeah, so in for pins and markers, or when we have pins, can we add those to the tag viewer, so like markers, so you can actually see the actual value?
Yeah.
Up in the trend.
So right now, the answer to that is no. We do not have the ability to add the values from a smart mouse pin up into the tag info grid the same way we do with markers. Part of the reason why it works with markers is markers are fixed, right? We have sort of two. It's not an indefinite or an undefined amount. That is something, though, that we could take back to the development team, and if we sort of hear more about it or we see that there's a need for it, we can. But right now, the pins, they're visual. They stay on the screen. There's nothing that affects the tag info grid so far.
Okay. Actually, I have another question for you. So is there a way to access comments out of MDE, MDE cells, and pulling them into Excel?
The answer to that is yes, but it's a little tricky. So we don't have an easy way to pull it out into Excel, like through the data normalize sheet. There's not an option to pull out comments. That being said, all of the comments are stored in SQL. So if you're someone who knows a bit about SQL and wants to write a query to our database, you could use that and kind of combine that, use a query inside of maybe a VBA call inside of Excel to pull it out. But there is not a way to do it directly through the UI. It would require a little bit of back-end code work.
So this was answered in the chat, but I'm not sure that we're going to have access to the chat once these are recorded. So is there a way to use a snap feature functionality in Park Graphics Designer 7X? Yeah,
so that was answered in chat. We've actually had snap to grid the entire graphics designer, the life of it. So yes, it is in there. It's under user options or client options on the tab.
It's in the view tab, and then it's just layout, and then there's a checkbox for snap. I just pulled it up to confirm.
Okay, good. I was trying to do it off of memory, and Park View, but it's not all memorized.
Yeah.
But yes, we do have a snap to grid function. We disable it by default. That was just kind of a style choice that we made as engineers. We felt that it was easier to work with, but it is there. Okay, I'll pose this question to you, but feel free to bounce it back if you want. If someone copies an alarm and changes the tag, but the new tag is not in the same process as the old, what happens?
So if it's not in any process, so a tag has to be in a process in order for the alarms to, I think, save in the grid. We were playing with this earlier, but in a new process, I'm not sure that would cause issues. Adam?
That's my understanding as well, is that if you put in a new tag that was, as long as it's part of a different process and it's not undefined,
yeah,
it should be it'll pick up that it's a part of a new process and then use those process settings if requested. So usually that's around like a filter tag disabling an alarm whenever the process, is filtered or goes down, if you will. Okay, let's see. Can you add a pop-up prompt to save data entered in a graphic if a tag isn't set to autosave? So I assume this is around manual entry inside of a graphic?
Yeah, so there is a, not tag, there's a call that checks to see if items are saved or not. In a manual, in like a view box that's in a graphic, you should have that little pencil. So you should be able to see if the item is saved or not via that pencil. But if you, let's see, on the exit, you can still grab it to see if it's been saved. But I don't know on the exit click, Adam.
As far as I know, we don't have anything tied to closing the graphic on
the graphic itself. Yeah.
Yeah.
You could maybe do some sort of timer or something else that says, if it hasn't been saved in X amount of time, then do that. But if that's a real problem, then instant save is probably the best solution for that.
Yeah. Okay. Let's see. Does the update if the Excel sheet is updated? This is probably about the Excel data series. Do you want me to field this one?
Sure. I think I know the answer, but I don't want to lie.
My understanding is it's sort of yes and no. I don't believe that the trend will live update if you already have the trend open and you've added the Excel tags to it. It won't attempt to redraw or redetect anything. That being said, if you do save a trend that's pointing to these Excel files, whenever the trend loads, it will attempt to load all of the historical data. I suppose if your new data in Excel was new chronologically, hadn't appeared yet, the trend will continue pulling in that new data. So for example, one time I had a 1 second data for an entire day, and I did it for the current day. So right now it's approximately 11:15. My trend would continue updating because I had data through 11:15 to noon to 1 to the entire end of the day. So the trend will continue picking that new data up. But I don't think it will try to redraw anything that's already on it without closing and opening the display. All right, I have one that I think you can answer. Can we save the pins, the smart mouse pins?
At this point, we cannot. We are not saving the smart mouse pins. Steve had mentioned that in the introduction of smart mouse, and if that's a feature that you guys want, bombard us with emails, and we'll figure it out.
Yeah, kind of like Steve mentioned, it's a matter of making sure that we save them in a way that doesn't take up a lot of space or pollute the database. And so for now, we don't have that, but we can certainly look into it.
So how do you get grade description on a graphic?
That's a good question, and I suppose it depends on what kind of object or way you want to see it. So if you're using embedded manual entry tools, that has the option to show the grade. Same thing with like an embedded center line. If you're just like, if you're trying to say, how do I see the description in like a tag itself and just like a text box, we would need to create probably like a calculation tag that would say, okay, if the grade is currently X, the description in the database says that it's Y, and we would make Y the data point. So yeah, it probably would, depending on what method you want, it's either in the UI or might take a little bit of sort of calc tag work. Okay. Sorry, just scanning the chat, making sure. Sorry, Wayne has a trivia question. What was the code name for mouse pinning? Our internal code name, a lot of companies have internal code names before they release it formally. So this is a nice little bit of trivia for you, was mouse droppings. And this was a controversial name, well-liked by many, but disliked by some, and not quite sure it's ready for prime time, if you will. So we came up with some other names for it. Okay. I think that's it for the questions.
Yeah, I don't see any more either.
So we'll go ahead and say thank you to Molly. But before we all log out formally, I just want to say thank you to everyone for joining. Whether it was from your home office, your work office, or just home in general, whether you're in the country or from abroad, we put a lot of time and energy into making this user conference work. And redoing it, given everything going on, to virtual, which was not our original intention. And hopefully we can get back to the live mode, assuming things pan out in sometime in the future. So to everyone that joined, thank you so much. To all the presenters on camera, thank you so much. And to everyone behind the scenes who you didn't see, but the rest of us saw, making all of this happen. Thank you so much to all of you too. That's User Conference 2020. As mentioned, these videos and the handouts are going to be available to you in one form or another. Most likely they'll be on our forum the same way the 2018 ones were. So stay tuned. We'll get those to you. And otherwise, everyone have a great day. Thank you for joining us, and hopefully we'll catch you at the next one. Bye.